Must win. Saturday is a must win. Derby County head into this one off the back of 3 back-to-back defeats. Sheffield United beat Derby away a couple of weeks ago, Norwich City last Saturday, and Sunderland in midweek. We head into this game versus QPR at Pride Park Stadium ahead of an international break. And it is a must-win game, in my opinion. I don't think you can sugarcoat it. I think the next 5 or 6 games are going to put a massive seal of approval on Derby County's sort of position in this championship table. It's a really important period for us. Obviously, we've got this one heading into the international break, but then we've got some massive games against some opponents who you'd probably expect to be in and around us at the end of the season. We head into this one versus QPR with a lack of confidence, in my opinion. We weren't very good on Tuesday night versus Sunderland. We didn't really put in the performance expected versus Norwich City. Yes, the referee chaos caused the result, but it wasn't great. Sheffield United, we were lacklustre in front of goal, and it's another one where we need to find performance. If you want to stay tuned for all of my latest Derby County and EFL League One and Championship content, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on that notification bell down below. We're trying to hit 1.4 thousand subscribers, and you can help me by hitting that subscribe button. Let me know your team predictions down in the comments. Let me know your score predictions as well, because I'm really interested looking into this one. So here we have it, Derby County back at Pride Park Stadium is this the third time after the international break as we host QPR at home at 3 o'clock. It's a normal time kickoff for Derby County, and I think what we've got to talk about first heading into this one is the disappointing performance from Tuesday night. Now, do not get me wrong, I think I was very clear in the fact that I didn't expect Derby to come away with 3 points in that game. Did I expect us to get anything out of it? No, not really. It was a disappointing one on the whole. And I just don't quite think we put in a performance that you want to see of a team who are trying to stay in the division. Obviously, Sunderland are league leaders as I'm talking right now, and they will probably get promoted this season, but that is something which Derby County could have helped to put a stop to, and it just wasn't a great performance. We made an abundance of changes, bringing in the likes of Harness, Wilson, Phillips, Chiwa, and I don't necessarily think they were bad changes. I just think it was a difficult game to throw players in who have played like 20 minutes off the bench. And don't get me wrong, I think there were some good spells, but I think at times we just didn't quite have the edge. Now, heading into this one, we've obviously got a couple of injuries to keep our eyes on both sides. Obviously, David Ozo is still out. Jake Rooney, it says estimated back in April, but we know he's back in training. Liam Thompson, Tom Barkhazen, I don't really know what's going on with them. Maybe they'll be back for this one. Obviously, both picked up muscle injuries heading into, I think it was the Cardiff City game, if I remember rightly. And it was a bit of a disappointing one when those two got injured, because obviously big players for the squad. Now, if we look at the recent form of the two sides, I don't think either side are going to be delighted with their recent run. Obviously, Derby County will take confidence from their 2 wins versus Bristol City and Cardiff, but 3 back-to-back defeats and not really great performances for Derby is where I personally have my problems. I don't think we were great against Sheffield United. Did I expect to beat Sheffield United, who are going to be a playoff contender? Probably not, but I expected us to put in a bit more of a fight. Norwich City, I think we were well worth a point in that game, but unfortunately, the refereeing errors cost us in that one. And last night versus Sunderland was an awful performance, in my opinion. I don't think it was very good at all, and it's something which we're going to have to deal with when we play those top teams, because as much as I think you've got to try and sit in and hold a point, I just don't think we did that very well. And I think we gave away the ball a little bit too cheaply in the first half and even in the second half. It was just a disappointing display. Now, we look at QPR in their last 5, 2 draws versus Sheffield Wednesday and Millwall, and then 3 defeats to Crystal Palace, Blackburn Rovers, and a 3-1 defeat to Hull City last night. Now, if we do look at the league table, we can see these two sides. Derby County sitting in 13th on 9 points, QPR in 20th on 7. Now, I look at this from a worst case scenario perspective. If Derby County lose and everyone below win, which I actually don't think is possible, no, because Sheffield Wednesday play Bristol, so that can't happen. No, Sheffield Wednesday play Bristol tonight. So it's one of those where we could drop like a stone. We could be just outside the relegation zone heading into the international break, and it's eerie. It's a really eerie situation. Now, we know the history between these two clubs. Obviously, you can go back to the playoff final back in, 2013, 2014, under Steve McLaren, where Derby County lost in like the 93rd minute and QPR went up, and it was a really disappointing day, but it's never really been a great fixture for Derby County, although 7 wins each. But if you look through the last section of games, it's two wins since 2019, and they've played a fair few times. So it's a bit disappointing for Derby County. They'll be hoping to pick something up in this one at Pride Park Stadium. I do think there's going to be changes heading into this weekend's game. I think we're going to see the return of some of those who moved away and out of the squad for the midweek game. I think one thing that we have to look at when we're looking at team selection is what is going to happen with the system. Are we going to stick with the back five? Are we going to move back to the midfield four, the midfield five sort of thing instead, where you obviously got those 3 attacking midfield players? Now, we're going to get into that in just a minute. Make sure you drop your team predictions down in the comments as well as your score predictions. If you have not done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell to stay tuned for all of my latest Derby County and EFL Championship and League One content heading your way. I'm really intrigued about this one. I think it's going to be a really, really difficult one, but let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I'm really intrigued to see what you have to say. We move now into my team selection for this weekend's game, and I think it's a difficult one for Paul Warne. I don't necessarily think Harness was amazing versus Sunderland, and realistically, if he doesn't start, I'm not going to be disappointed, but I think you've got to get Blackett-Taylor in the squad. And I think Ben Osborne's been a bit lacklustre in midfield, so I think you can't have him in midfield. And I think you need an attacking edge. Now, there is a possibility that we could go to a 4-4-2 and maybe go Collins and Yates up front with your 2 wide men, 2 central midfielders, and your back 4. Now, I'm not a massive fan of James Collins. I think he can score goals. But I think, and I said it on Twitter on Tuesday night when someone was talking about Collins and the fact that we're missing a physical presence up front or something. It was something along them lines. But James Collins doesn't have the mobility, he doesn't have the speed, he doesn't have the movement. Yes, he has the physicality, but he can't keep up with counters. And that's something that at home we've been really good at, is having Jerry Yates right up there with the play, and having Mendes-Lang and Caden Jackson catching up. And in my opinion, I think if we were to start a second striker, I think it should be Dejan Brown. Now, it won't happen. He won't start Dejan Brown. I think last night speaks volumes of what Paul Warne thinks of his striking options of Dejan Brown and James Collins, because we're chasing a goal. He brings on 3 forwards, takes off a proper number 9 and puts Mendes-Lang and Caden Jackson as the front 2 at one point. I think Jackson was the main striker for the majority of that period, and then obviously got Blackett-Taylor on the left-hand side. And I just really think that we've got to make a shake-up. I think we've been playing with the midfield. Realistically, we had a set midfield with Ozo, Adams and Kenzo, but I think since losing Ozo, we've lost that bite in midfield. And I love Ibu Adams. I think he's a really good player. I think he works really hard. I think he's really good off the ball, but on the ball he just lacks a bit. And yes, he can take you up the pitch, but the things that he can't do are the things that we really need right now. And it's going to be really interesting to see how it sort of does progress heading into this one. I think you've got to bring Forsyth back in if you're going to a back 4. And I have to say, it's really harsh on Nat Phillips, because I don't think he was poor last night. So I think it is really harsh on Phillips for him to drop out. But I think you've got to go tried and tested. I think that back four, the back five have been really good. Obviously, the 2 goals versus Norwich, which you can't do anything about. The other one was a really, really good bit of play from Norwich and a really nice finish from Sainz. But it's one of those. It's difficult. It is difficult, and obviously, so the team that I've selected, which you've obviously seen on screen now for probably the last 4 minutes or so, is Zetterstrom in goal, a back four of Nyambi, Nelson, Cashin and Forsyth, a midfield 3 of Adams and Kenzo holding, with Marcus Harness in the 10, Mendes-Lang on the left, Mendes-Lang on the right, Blackett-Taylor on the left, Jerry Yates up front. Now, I think Chiwa and Caden Jackson off the bench, good options. Dejan Brown off the bench, I personally believe is a good option. I think I am disappointed with the lack of minutes that Dejan Brown's been getting this season. You don't send him out on loan, and then you don't give him an opportunity. Yes, he's sitting on the bench. Yes, he's involved, but I think I said during my transfer window review that I want us to give him 400-500 minutes before January. If he hasn't got that, then he has to go out on loan. And obviously, the Gateshead manager has now moved to Crawley Town, so that could be a potential option in January. And it's one of those for me. You can obviously let me know your teams down in the comments, but I just think the only real change that you could make to this is turning this into a front 2 and bringing in, Dejan Brown or James Collins. If we do just switch it to a 4-4-2, move him up there, him over there, sort of something like this, or with James Collins instead. Now, I personally would rather have that 4-2-3-1. I think it just works a little bit better, but you can obviously let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Now, we've been a main focus on Derby County, and I think we're in a difficult spell as Derby County because, yes, we're playing good teams in this division, and we're competing to an extent, but you just do want a little bit more. I think everyone can agree that coming away from heading into the Sunderland game, no one expected a result, and coming away from it with nothing wasn't a shock. But the way in which we played and the lacklustre nature at points, that's sort of where my criticism comes in. I was on the Rams Review podcast a few days ago, looking ahead to the Sunderland game. If you want to check that out, go and check them out over on Twitter. I think their podcast is up on Spotify. It was up that night, and it's one of those for me where I do think that it's one of those where I don't have many faults against Paul Warne so far this season, but the one thing I do have to fault is the substitutions, when he's making them and how he's making them and what he's doing. And I think we took off a number 9 and brought on 3 wingers. Fair enough. We then don't have a focal point because we saw versus Blackburn that Caden Jackson isn't that man. But it's just really difficult. And I understand the position Paul Warne's in. It's a difficult position. He's trying to pick up results, and he maybe doesn't quite have the options that he wants available to him. But that's something which we're going to have to assess over the course of the next few weeks. Obviously, we're going to look through the transfer window over the course of next week during the international break. We're going to look ahead to the fixtures on the way back from the international break. Obviously, there's another one in November, and then it gets really busy. So if there are things you're interested in sticking around for, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit that like button, and I'll catch you in my next video. Make sure to go and find me on TikTok, pictured here, and Twitter, pictured here. These are the places where I'll keep you all up to date with all my upcoming videos and my thoughts and feelings around the Formula 1 and Football Week.